Lisa here again. Thank you for joining me for my virtual book tour on Empowering Marketing and Sales with HubSpot. This is our third session in the series. And just to recap what we've had so far, our first guest was Sangram. He is the author of Move. It's a book that helps you understand how to build your GTM process, not your strategy. We then had Marcus Sheridan. He is the author of They Ask You Answer. And in our discussions, he helped us to understand how to build and write content that really disarms our audience and helps our prospects to get over their fears and concerns about working with us or using our products and services. So this week, I thought, why not challenge you and show you how one company, one agency is selling in a smaller market and getting success. Sometimes we feel that we have to be always targeting North America or England. And we do understand for some businesses, scale matters. So we do need to have that volume. But I did want to have this particular session so you can understand, regardless of the market you exist in and how many exist in that market, you still have an opportunity to sell to your audience and to reach your prospects correctly. What you will hear from Lyndon is that with consistency and the right strategy, you are able to get more sales in that market and reach your target audience. So let's join Lyndon and hear how he grew his HubSpot agency in a lovely Twin Island country called Trinidad and Tobago, same country I am from, and how he has become almost one of the most top partners for the year in HubSpot. So let's join that conversation now. Great. Lyndon, I am so excited to have you here with me today. This is a conversation I was dying to have and to add to my virtual tour. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Risa, it is an honor that you are having me. I look forward to everything that we need to share in this conversation today. It's a pleasure.
Amazing. Well, first of all, guys, as I said earlier, Lyndon is a HubSpot partner as well. But I do have to celebrate Lyndon for 1 second before we begin. Because I've known Lyndon for a couple of years and he's always been a dedicated HubSpot partner. But I was so proud when it is I actually got into my HubSpot page and saw that Lyndon and his agency is up for Rookie of the Year this year. This is a testament to the hard work you are doing, Lyndon, in a small, tiny island called Trinidad and Tobago that nobody really knows about. And everybody's like, where are you from again? So Lyndon, tell us a bit about your agency and how is it that you operate in Trinidad and Tobago?
All right. So Risa, again, thanks for that. So OPAAT SWY is a sales enablement agency. We're just 4 years in the business in terms of doing sales enablement. But interestingly enough, just about 2 years as a HubSpot partner. And I started off in 2019 or 2020 as a junior partner, what we will call a solutions provider. And we eventually made the transition across into, sometime around the middle of this year, we made the transition into being an actual partner. So yeah, we're now a solid solutions partner with HubSpot, and it's been an interesting journey so far. Yeah.
Wow. I'm so proud of you, Lyndon, to see your growth. You know, people like to think I am the hero, but I'm like, I built an agency in Israel filled with startups. You did this from ground up in Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah. And for those of you who don't really know where that is, it's a really tiny island on the south side of the Caribbean, just bordering Venezuela, with 1.5 million people. Okay, guys? So it's not that it has like tons of startup businesses and people dying to get HubSpot. And here's Lyndon pushing HubSpot and selling HubSpot on this tiny Twin Island. So Lyndon, one of the things I wanted to discuss as well, because, you know, I grew up in Trinidad as well. And one of the things I see whenever I visit home and things, it's like compared to Israel, sometimes I feel like businesses are hesitant to invest in technologies like HubSpot. What has been your experience so far in trying to really expand and get customers to your agency?
All right. So great question. And let me just add to the last comment that you made to let folks know that Trinidad is also not a part of Jamaica.
Good one. Very important. We have carnival, guys. Come on.
Yeah. So as it relates to what I see here, so we have a number of organizations who initially I've always felt as though companies are very adverse to technology. And in the Caribbean, we are slow adopters, but it doesn't mean that we don't adopt. All right. The thing is that what I've seen coming out of my years at the previous organization that I worked for, which was a tech-based reseller, um, is that companies buy a lot of stuff, but they don't always use it. It's like
Right.
people who buy fancy phones, they buy the Note, whether it's the Samsung or the whatever it is. It has all the features, but they use 30% of the entire thing, and it's always not applicable to how they use the phone. If we're using the phone as the example, and becoming a partner or starting to introduce HubSpot to companies here, even from whether it's entrepreneurs or large organizations, we have a lot of companies who are using different bits of technology and it's cobbled together. The thing is that it's not always working well for them. So when we do start having the conversation about HubSpot, yes, there's some apprehension initially because they feel as though they may have been wasting money on a bit of technology. As a matter of fact, I'm doing an implementation with a company in the automotive space, and HubSpot is their third attempt at CRM. I'm hoping that what I do with them is the last attempt at the entire thing. But they had one piece of technology from before, they had another piece of technology second to take care of the first one. And you hear the stress on the team, but you also hear the stress from the company that we needed the software to do this for us, but they're not. It hasn't been that successful, and that is a general consensus. So we have a number of organizations investing in things, but they don't know how to use it, or they're not sure what they're fully trying to get out of it, and it tends to have fallout somewhere where they now have some apprehension on technology, so they stick with the old school stuff of Excel and gut feelings and stuff like that.
That's such a good point, Lyndon. And trust me, I see it across all types of businesses. This is not
Right.
just to Trinidad. I've gone into companies in Israel as well and see how many systems they use. And I'm like, guys, you have so much money. Could you please give me some of that instead of spending it in all these systems? So it is a common problem because companies are always trying out what's the next new shiny object, and they
Yeah.
never really take time to think about what are their needs and to fully understand if these systems could fulfill their needs. I also think, one of the problems that companies don't consider when they choose a system are the resources they have internally to operate that system, right?
Hmm.
So sometimes they overlook the capacity of their employees and their tech team and who can really run these systems, or even if they have agencies like yourself on the market that could assist them. What has been your
Right.
experience really like selling your services as an agency in that market? Do you think they want to work with more agencies, or they prefer to have the employees in-house to do the work?
I think it's a bit of both, and there's actually been some instances where I've had to work on how do I wean myself as an agency off of the customer, because one of my main goals is I want companies to be sustainable, right? And you can't be sustainable if you're always dependent on the partner, right? So
Exactly.
after a particular point, we want to be able to let take off the training wheels with the customer and allow them to run their portal. Allow them to come up with their own ideas, go into the system, do it, and work it the way it's supposed to work for them. And if it is that you want to reach out to the partner for some more complex work or some guidance on doing something, fine, we could do that. But we do have instances where there's sometimes a longer stage where you have to do a little bit more hand holding, because of course the introduction of HubSpot, or what is required of the resources, is sometimes not always well positioned. So the adoption, not because sometimes people don't want to use it, they see HubSpot as this big thing that they don't want to mess up. So there's a little bit of a fear, so that someone doesn't want to take on the responsibility of being the administrator of
Yes.
the platform. So it's just really building their confidence, as well, in terms of, okay, who are going to be the administrators, so someone doesn't have to say me, no, I don't want to do that. But just really getting folks to understand this is how you can do it, and trying to create more champions within the platform. So yeah, that's kind of been our experience to date so far.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Lyndon, I know you work with a lot of, let's call them non-tech companies or non-traditional companies. You mentioned the automotive space. I know
Right.
you work with some of the tertiary institutions as well. Tell
Mhm.
me, how is it that you find their adoption of platforms and systems like HubSpot? How are they using the systems, and what are some of
Mm.
the takeaways you're seeing from their adoption of such systems?
Right. So one of those, I'd say one of those industries would be along the lines of higher education. I have started a conversation with real estate. Again, they are traditionally paper and Excel type organizations, and their adoption, it comes down to where are the people mentally in terms of how they want to be able to progress and how they see technology helping them. And it's varied because I can give an example of two organizations, one who was extremely prepared to have HubSpot
Mm-hmm.
being their tool that they use moving forward. So that onboarding process was extremely smooth. The team was ready, but guess what? They were using something that they felt that they already had something technological before that they felt wasn't working for them. So they were already technology adopters. They just needed HubSpot to guide them along. As
Right.
opposed to another organization in the same industry, it's taken them years to really understand how to use the platform strategically. They're still using one of the lower versions of HubSpot, even though their business has outgrown what they're using right now. But so it comes down to the individuals. And I'll tell you the biggest thing, Risa, the biggest challenge with companies, even if I have to take HubSpot out of the picture, is strategy. So when I do sales enablement and we're talking about teaching the sales team certain things
Mm-hmm.
or kind of planting the seed for marketing, the biggest missing component is a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Something solid that they can measure, something solid that they can execute. And it could be sort of a little bit tangible as well, so that they can say, okay, yes, the deal closed, or we have the leads that's actually coming in. So they know that they want those things, or sometimes they don't know that they want those things. And most definitely, they do not know, or it's not very clear as to how to go about getting those things. So with these non-traditional, as we would say, institutions, sometimes the process for me is a little bit longer because I have to show them. There's something. Kendall Fickling said something. He always says something that's, I call it crooked stick theory, where he says a crooked stick doesn't know it's crooked until it sees a straight stick, right?
Wow.
So I have to sometimes show the customer, this is what you're doing wrong. This is where the gaps are, and this is how you have to do it. And that takes a little while. I've accepted that as part of my sales process because we do have to do a lot of education. I would use different mediums to do that education, whether it's blogs, email marketing. I will do videos on YouTube, or use video and send those things out to the customer because again, education is important, and sometimes educating the right people or getting the message in front of the right people so you can then move on to the decision maker has been part of the journey. So yeah, a lot of these non-traditional markets, or sometimes the traditional markets, they have a standard way of operating, and it's not always bringing them sometimes the best return until someone comes in like myself who would say, okay, but you could be getting this much. You can get a little bit more juice out of the orange if we were to just do it this way, and that's kind of how it goes from time to time.
Amazing. That's quite interesting. But as I keep saying to you, nothing strange, right? Because
Hmm.
in my experience, even selling into Israeli tech companies, and you think these are startups, they know technology, they have strategy,
Right.
they organize. It was like holding a toddler's hand and trying
And
to take them through the course and saying, this is what you need to do. This is why you do what you do, you know? And this was a big reason of why I even wrote the book, because I kept getting these, what I thought was basic questions that people should really understand already or have some type of inclination of where they want to go, and they
mhm.
didn't, you know. So I know they pick up the tool, but they don't have a strategy behind that tool. And a big part of my book is really talking about how do you build that strategy correctly? How do you make sure you have the right thought process behind the things you're setting up in the system? Because once you set it up, hello, this is how the show begins, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm glad you say that, because once you hit the switch on HubSpot, right, it will do exactly as to what you ask it to do for you. And I tell people HubSpot is going to do two things. It's going to work with you and it's going to work for you, right? It's going to work for you once you understand what you want to ask it for, and then if you need the support on certain things, then that is one of your first go-to tools, right? So it will support you and your team in terms of getting the things that you need, so that you will be able to make the right decisions, not miss out on opportunities, or amplify an opportunity. You never know. I tell people that just by applying a strategy and using a HubSpot tool, which was email marketing, I was able to close a pretty interesting opportunity that started off as a speaking engagement, and then moved into a consulting engagement for about 7 months. And the one thing that I did was change the strategy, but then I used HubSpot's email marketing. I filtered down in terms of the ideal customers I wanted to do that, and I targeted that group alone. And within a couple hours, someone within that list called me and said, "Listen, we would like for you to come and speak to our team," etc., etc. And then that turned into additional business. So again, taking what you're not doing so well, applying a strategy using the tool, and it goes. But if you don't have those things, you're going to find that the platform isn't working for you. You're going to hear all the negatives of why HubSpot isn't, but it always ties back into what is it that we are not doing to get the thing out of it.
I love that. That's a great testimony. But it also brings me to the next questions I wanted to ask you about different things you do to get leads, right?
Right.
I know, like myself, you also hold conferences. I used to run Content Israel and Sales Keneson in Israel. And these were two major conferences I'm running every year. And it took a lot out of my team and I to run it. Trust me, it was the best investment I did for the agency, because this is where I got like lifelong leads after these conferences, right? So I know you guys run, what's the name of the conference you guys run in Trinidad?
It's Sales the Profession Conference. I do that with my colleague Jared Best Mitchell, and we've been doing it for the past 4 years. And again, it started off by just two guys, Jared and myself, really enthusiastic about sales. And we were chatting one Sunday afternoon. I said, you know what? We need to do a conference. And Jared was like, yeah, let's do that. And then Jared was also saying, well, we need to create our podcast series and everything else on YouTube. And I said, okay, yeah, let's do that. And we did the two. And those two things really helped us. As a matter of fact, I mean, I'll kind of go into the answering of that question a little bit. We were able to build our audience because we did it every Sunday morning at 9 at Starbucks. And it was live. We did it on Instagram.
Nice.
Right. And the following started from there. So from conference one, when we started to just do that, I think we did it for almost a year.
Wow.
Right. And then when it was time for us to actually do the conference, we had such a following on Instagram, both Jared and myself, and collectively, so that when we did the conference in 2019, it wasn't that difficult for us to sell. I mean, it did extremely well. It sold out. And then after that, what we just kept doing was, we consistently nurtured. So we used some aspects of email marketing. Jared and I would always show up on certain social platforms, just talking about certain things like sales. And outside of the conference, so yes, the conference has been a major thing. So let's say you don't want to do a conference. Let's say you think conference is outside of your scope. What are some of the other things that have actually worked for me? Well, I spoke about strategically using email marketing from before, right? And I use email marketing in two ways. I use email marketing from a push on if I have particular programs that's coming up, or I will just use it from the standpoint of educating, right? That's one. So I would find particular things I would want to educate my base on. So people who are actually in HubSpot under certain demographics, whether they're sales reps, whether they're marketing managers, whether they're HR, put together content and send to those people. So not one message isn't for everybody, right? It's all segmented. The other thing is social platforms have actually been extremely good. And I like to track. So even when I'm doing training, I try to track where the deal came from. So I've been able to itemize and show people, well, we were able to make $60,000 this year coming out of LinkedIn, or we were able to make $25,000 coming from a Facebook post, or this came from email marketing, because sometimes when you put a dollar value to it, people believe it more.
Yes.
You know, that's a little bit of the tangible side. So at least I don't think, well, they're doing this thing in vain. But again, yeah, we've had a lot of opportunities that have come from using social. Even OPAAT SWY being part of HubSpot's academy came from social media. I had consistently putting content out on sales operations, and lo and behold, Kyle reached out to me, right? And Kyle said, "Hey, you know, we're doing something on revenue operations. Would you be interested?" I was like, "Oh yeah, of course." You know, so yeah, different platforms. I use YouTube as well. YouTube has not brought a monetary return. However, YouTube has actually given me some recognition in different spaces. So I get a lot of people from Europe, from Latin America, and interestingly enough, someone reached out to me from HubSpot and said, "Hey, this is how we've been using some of your videos to teach our customers." You know, and I'm thinking, well, aren't other partners doing that as well? But it seems as though other partners are not kind of building a portfolio of content to be able to just teach their customers. And so, yeah, the use of content in different ways has been extremely powerful. Yes, we've done the conference. And then I also, apart from what I do, I also just use the old school ways sometimes of making generalized introductions to folks. This year, going into next year, I intend to really now kind of explore how the public relations side of things, like how do we now get back into media, into print media. So kind of strategically looking at writing specific articles that are specific to Trinidad and Tobago and by extension the Caribbean, because we have problems we need to solve. So yes, I would love to write for Forbes, but we have a problem here that we need to fix. And I've seen from examples from other colleagues where that has helped them tremendously, and it's actually filtered back into their business. It's actually filtered back into their social base. So their base has grown. So many different ways, and just being open to try new things and see what comes out of it and track it.
That's really important, Lyndon. I think all you've said there, this is especially why I'm doing this series again, because I think as new agency owners, sometimes we feel we could never get the success of the bigger agencies. You know, we look at the bigger agencies and we're like, wow, they're doing so amazing. They're well known in HubSpot. They probably get all the deals. And you see how you've created your own opportunities yourself by consistently being committed to your product and your way of working, and other people notice, right? And this is the message I always try to share with other people. Don't think about other people. You know, I always follow the saying that says your only competition should be yourself. You should only try to be better than you. So I think what you've said there really highlighted that once you consistently do the work, the results will show itself, and you'll be able to get the leads, and you'll be able to get the recognition that you're looking for.
Yeah, and I'll say this to her. So like, when you mentioned until you sent me that note or the message of where we were in terms of HubSpot's performance award, those are things traditionally I don't always pay attention to. No, I am quietly competitive, yes, all right, but I wasn't even thinking that we could have done that. All right, if you meet me on the basketball court, I'm a different individual. Let's talk a lot of the mess and that kind of thing, right? But when it comes to work, my focus is on the customer. But just focusing on the customer, and I'll actually maybe say this as well, like focusing on the customer, a large part of our business too has come from referrals, right? So we've had customers tell other customers, you know, and that has really been a big thing for us, because it's, you know, the whole thing with HubSpot's flywheel, right? When you delight your customers, they become your champions and your salespeople for other customers. So it's really made our sales process sometimes a lot easier, because customers are bought in. It's only sometimes when we reach the financials is where things get, you know, they want to pause and stuff like that. But because again, it sales like anything else. But the buy-in, just to even begin to have the conversations, because there are sometimes companies I am not even thinking of, but because someone may have said something, or someone may have seen something and passed it on as a social media or WhatsApp or whatever share, we at least begin to have those conversations. So I would say to any partner, position yourself as an authority. My website has been a big help to me as well, because I use let me, and I'll also say it like this: everything that I've learned, a lot of the things that I've learned has come from you. It's come from a guy here named Karen Rose. It's come from HubSpot. And from on the website side of things, I've sort of looked at what HubSpot has been doing, and said, you know what, I'm going to build out all of my resources. So like, if a customer is looking for something, they go there. What I am actually seeing now is that I'm seeing people who I wasn't targeting, or industries that I haven't really been targeting much, coming there, because of course, the analytics will tell you the industry, the country, the company, and stuff like that. So and all I intend to do with that is just keep adding more content towards that, and strategically building out the team to help support, because again, being an authority, you never know where you can end up. My focus is still Trinidad and the Caribbean, but I'm pretty sure at some point it's going to expand in its own way, and I'll allow that to be as organic as possible.
Amazing. Lyndon, these are some of the best tips I think we could have taken away today. I really appreciate that you shared so openly, because this is something I think, again, agency owners don't do enough of, like sharing what works for them, what are some of their best practices, and how they really manage to pivot sometimes when things don't work, and how they try different things. So I appreciate you for being so open today with me.
Thank you very much, Risa.
My last question to you before we wrap up, though, is, before I ask you my last question, let me ask you, where could people find more about you? Where should they follow you? Which platforms are you familiar or most active on?
So first and foremost, I would always say you go to opaatswy.com. So that's www.opaatswy. Yes, and that's a funny name. .com.
I'll put it in the don't worry, you don't have to remember it.
Right. And so that's always there first. Other than that, on LinkedIn, you can just type in Lyndon Brathwaite. So far, there's only one. Right.
Wow.
Right. On YouTube and on Instagram and on Facebook, you can do the same thing. You just use the respective handles, and you just put /OPAAT SWY, and you'll find it. You'll find me there as well. So, and if you're in Trinidad, you can find me on the basketball court. And
must have. So thanks, Lyndon. My last question for you is, what is one thing that your services or your agency has done for a company that you did not expect?
Wow. That is a really good question. I would say, I think it emboldened, I think it would have emboldened some of the, so I did something for higher education agency, institution. And the feedback I got a couple of Fridays ago was that the staff is like way more confident to use some of the sales training that they got from someone else from before. They actually got it from Jared. So them being now able to now take that training and apply it, and it seems as though their confidence is actually shot up a lot, because what one sales course advisor was actually saying is that because she has some history within there, they just feel really, really happy to speak to the customers a lot better. So, I mean, that's one thing I'll definitely say. I think it's kind of brought the entire organization together, and you're seeing the different departments grow and communicate. So that's maybe the one thing I wasn't how should I say? I was expecting it, but not to the extent of what I heard recently.
Amazing. And that alone is golden. Done. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to your continued success, and for you to be growing as a partner. Soon you'll be diamond like I was.
Right. Well, most definitely, Risa. Thank you again for having me on. Always willing to share.
Thank you.